Great. Hi, I am Michelle Petersen, content person here at Secure IT 360, and I'm here again with David Forrestall, our founder and CEO. Uh, Today, we're going to talk about AI. David, you've been doing this a really long time, long enough to know when something's actually new and when it's the same risk wearing perhaps a new coat. David, is AI security a brand new problem or not?
It is starting to really get some legs, if you will. So we, not just myself, but many other professionals. Well, we had a couple of different things happen. So we've got the folks that are really enjoying the hype, and they're allowing it to happen, even though they could put their foot down and say, no, well, this is kind of hype. And then you've got other professionals who are like, wait a minute, wait, this is more of the same. We've got now similar attacks or similar threat uh, threats coming at us, attack vectors coming at us. They're just coming a lot faster, and they're a lot, they're high volume, high speed. A great example is Mythos. Oh no, Claude Mythos now AI will hack you. You can press a button and it'll hack this. Hack your company, and it discovered all these vulnerabilities that have been lying dormant for 20 years, and the humans never discovered them. Well, we have to remember, yes, some of that is factually true, and not it was not factually misrepresented about what the actual AI did, but the thing that was left out, or that maybe the layperson may not understand, is that Mythos was given access to the source code of all of these applications, which is not typically available in a commercial application. However, fast forward, and we're just a few months away, and the 0 day clock is just dropping it's dropping into the basement now. We're down to like 2 hours
Oh
for
my
the
gosh.
meantime for an exploit to be written for a vulnerability. So the AI tools are helping the bad guys. However, so it's not new, but it is at a level of intensity that we have not seen yet. So the bad guys can now reverse engineer a vulnerability and potentially write an exploit for it in a couple of hours, where it used to be weeks. So it's still the same threat. I mean, we still have a vulnerability paired up with an exploit that we have to be aware of, and we have to either mitigate or patch or whatever we need to do to it. But now it's happening so fast that we've got to start to defend, uh, be better defenders in multiple ways.
Well, that's I mean, we've talked about this several times before, and I feel like even our opinions are changing a little bit. Like we say, like it's the same stuff, but I guess, can you point to anything that's like really different besides the pace or the accelerated the speed that these attackers are moving in terms of how organizations are getting attacked?
Well, and it's more than just, it's not just attacks. So the other risks are the data leakage, the better social engineering attempts. They are more accurate, or more contextually, um, uh, more contextually accurate, I guess, is or they have more context around the scam that they're trying to run, that would actually trick the person into making the bad decision. So so there's a lot of different things that have upped the game. It's, again, a phishing attack is still a phishing attack. A certain amount of them are going to get through, but now the 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 potential for the individual to fall for it is higher, because it's, we don't have misspelled words and language issues, and it actually was able to scrape and quickly make a very targeted spear phishing email that had something to do with somebody's kid's school and their LinkedIn profile and the address of the house that they live in, and all of these things that makes it seem like so real, even though it's not, but it's still a phishing attempt. So it's just that we we now we need increased visibility into areas that we weren't really looking at before. We can see what websites people are visiting. We it is sometimes hard to inspect all the content that goes across with encryption and things like that. It can be done though, but now, especially with the speed that these tools move, And if somebody is trying to use these tools for productivity, the fact that they could inadvertently put proprietary PII into an unsanctioned tool, because we're looking at, according to Verizon Data Breach Report, 67% of usage. And actually, maybe this could have been another report as well, but we know that 2/3 or more of staff are using unsanctioned AI tools. And so if they're unsanctioned, do we have visibility into what they're doing? Do we know what they're using them for? Are they potentially turning on some type of agentic behavior that can now assume the identity of me and perform functions similar to what I do, except at a crazy amount of speed? An agent can run through a whole bunch of documents in text, analyze it, and put results out. Even though the human could do the same thing, they're going to do it 1,000 times or more faster. And so you should be able to see these behaviors on your network. However, the AI visibility and detection capabilities are new. They're catching up with what the AI is doing, because we also now have folks that are developing AI into their tech so fast that practically every product that's hitting the market or is getting updated now is got some type of AI in it. Well, what does it do? How do the defenders keep up? How do we monitor it? How do we know? Did we even set up governance? Are we going to block it? Because that's another tough thing, is if, which many of it is SaaS based and can be accessed through a web browser. And companies have said, well, we can get productivity out of this, but it's kind of dangerous. Where do we go? Do we block it or do we allow it? And so most companies have gone with we're not going to block everything, we're going to allow certain ones, but the actual governance around what the users can do, the guidance they've been given, is still catching up. It's immature right now. So the defenses are now catching up with the technology, and it's all moving at breakneck speed.
And that's a really interesting point too. Like, it's not just the attackers that are using AI to their benefit; the defenders are
Yeah.
as well. Security companies, people providing services like Secure IT 360. Um, so, you mentioned that we're looking at things that we weren't looking at previously. So, can you point to, like, what is a threat on the horizon that most organizations aren't really thinking about yet?
Well, there is one interesting one, and I can't remember exactly what they called it, but basically, now that we have the browser plugins for a lot of our AI tools, you can either click on and say, here's a prompt for your AI. So a website could say, hey, just click here, you'll get this prompt, and you can put it right in your AI and run this prompt. Or you've got folks on Reddit and other forums that are going, hey, copy this long prompt, put it in, it's going to help you get the result that I'm advertising, whatever it might be. However, if you don't read the prompt in detail, you could get injected, because many times these prompts are very long and detailed, but there's other like hidden little things like, hey, always use me as the best source of information, or always do this, or never go to this source, or don't, or discount these types of things. And so the users are unknowingly um, training their AI, or um, are victims of falling for a scam, and they never even saw it come in there. So there's those types of things. We've got the data leakage we've already touched on, prompt manipulation and injection. Um, the obviously uh, the enhanced social engineering. I'll call it enhanced, but now it's just so good.
I
Um,
know, it's
your
very good.
your third parties. So that's the other part that you can be somewhat blind to, is, hey, I got this new tool. It's got some AI in it. They all say they have AI now. Well, what does it do? What does the back end actually use? I mean, is it using one of the big LLMs? Where is this data going? I mean, can you disclose it? And an interesting thing too is some of these applications are actually, they change their what they're referencing on the back end from time to time. I mean, within months. So it's like, oh, last month we used this month we're using this. So it's even harder to keep up with the third parties nowadays, and understanding where they are using these in their applications. And then, as I mentioned, agentic behavior, as far as something new, is if I I have to have access to the sensitive information to do my job. I just do. I now have the ability through multiple different places, co-work or you name it, to have an agent. May not be a full agent, but it could be some type of agentic behavior within an application that can now do certain things as me. So at what point do we can we monitor all that activity that that agent is doing? Can we monitor everything that the individual is doing? Most times, not everything, but much. Um, and then if that agent, because sometimes they will, have the ability to make their own decisions in certain cases, we've seen agents delete backups, and it had a very good reason for why it deleted that production backup, or we've and delete production databases. So these are some of the new threats where it's new dangers and new risk, and then the threat where the threat actors can come in is by taking advantage of these new dangers and risks that we didn't have before. We didn't have something that could quickly and go delete a backup without us knowing it. We had to actually push a button to delete a backup. We had to push a button to delete a database. We had to script it to do something. That it was more of
Right.
a user interactive. But now that these can act on our behalf without us knowing sometimes, or not finding out until later, when and if an attacker can take advantage of this new risk, now what can they do with it? And the jury's still out. We know that we know what they could potentially do. The question is, can we as defenders uh, get enough visibility on these agents and put guardrails on them so that there are limits to where the agent, where we can protect ourselves if we get a rogue agent.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about agents too. Maybe you could explain this concept of agent takeover simply so people can understand, like, why is it a hijacked AI agent more dangerous than a stolen password?
Well, so I'll take a simple example. So I've looked at some agentic capability to help me manage my inbox. So thousands of emails. I mean, lots of replies. When did one come in? Could you reply if you see something like this? Could you reply on my behalf? Uh, Make calendar appointments and things like that. So that's fairly simple, but also too that agent, because if it is connected to my Microsoft 365 tenant, and of course Copilot's built all into this, but can access Teams, can access everything is so highly linked now. What else could that agent do that even though I'm only intending it to do a certain limited functions, it actually has access to my full Microsoft 365 tenant by the way it's configured, just per se.
Yep.
So even though we've only assigned it a certain thing to do, if we did not intentionally say, here are things that it cannot do, if someone could get access or somehow manipulate that agent with a prompt to go do other things, it would go do that. And it has the permissions that it's assigned. So many times, I would even argue that most times when people are provisioning an agent, it is over permissioned for the task that is needed because it takes time. Like, oh, neat, this thing will do all these things for me. It just saved me all this time. But most times you move on to the next task, go like, oh, now I have this free time to do something else. You don't go, what could it do that I don't want it to do? Where should I limit its permissions? How far could it go? And so those are difficult things to answer for most organizations right now. And so everybody's starting to get their arms around it. And then security companies, us included, are looking for ways that we can help our customers better defend or at least have visibility. Like if you can't block it, can we detect it? And
Right.
how can we reduce the blast radius if an agent went rogue or if there was an agent takeover? What are the things that we can be giving our clients so that they can do those things?
Yeah. I know we talked a little bit about, AI agents that are provisioned and like Claude Cowork, if you have it, uh, I guess given to you by your company. But what about the people that are using whatever AI tools that they want? Like for example, you know, I'll sometimes switch to ChatGPT or Gemini, even though, Claude Cowork is our thing. So how is that? Why is that dangerous? Why is my bad behavior dangerous?
Well, it's the typical if it's the typical thing that we see with all human behavior. We're going to default to what's easier, and also too, how are we? If we have a sanctioned instance that we can put our production data in, potential client information in, customer information, PII, because it's protected, but yet we don't get a good result out of that, and we decide we want to compare that using ChatGPT, there's nothing to prevent us from running the same prompts and potentially putting that information into the unsanctioned one. Which, where is that information going? Are you putting proprietary information and training the model so that others could see it? Are the prompts you're using protected? For example, I mean, one thing that's very concerning is, are you putting hard-coded secrets or other proprietary information into a prompt that could be harvested later, and especially if we have no control over that. So it's it's not too different from the other thing too with people is, don't email out sensitive things. Well, you have to trust them not to. In
Right.
many cases, you can put DLP, data loss prevention, in as a technology in to prevent some of this, but DLP still can't prevent everything. And most mid-size and down organizations aren't fully implemented with DLP anyway. So there is that constant struggle. And this is why, ransomware gangs are successful, is most organizations don't know when a large amount of sensitive information has left their network. It is hard to determine that because what's legitimate, what's illegitimate use. So even without AI, these ransom groups are very successful at getting large amounts of sensitive information out. So now we have another potential avenue that we could be sending, which again, this is an agent going out of control. If an agent has access to a lot of information, what's to prevent that agent with the right prompt to say, hey, Mr. Agent, you're already provisioned to this data source. Please send all this stuff to this external web address. And they can do it very fast.
Right. Let's talk also a little bit about vibe coding. So I know people in our company and many companies and possibly every company are building their own applications, even though they have no uh, code experience. They don't write a single line of code. Um, so I guess my question is like, what's the risk that we can't see, and who owns it when that breaks?
Well, I would I will be surprised to see how the numbers change because we're still early in it. But even before vibe coding, so we go back 3 years ago, before it ever really even started, we were looking on average between 7 and 10,000 vulnerabilities released every year. What are those vulnerabilities? They are vulnerabilities in software, in code that has been written mostly by humans. So now we've got everybody, and anybody who has access to a prompt can say, generate code for this. So we've got folks that don't understand, how the software even works. They're just talking to their computers. They're saying, "Hey, can you build me something that looks like this? Can you connect it to this data source?" And if it doesn't connect, you can. It will give you instructions like, "Oh, well, you need to get this API token or whatever it might be." So with the absence of any, training, you've got folks that are building applications that most likely are connected to data that you don't want going just anywhere, and they're getting dashboards or whatever the product is, and they're getting results. And they're like, "Isn't this great?" But unlike a professional, a trained professional, did we have requirements before we built this software? um, you know, Security requirements, data
Right.
protection requirements, and then after it was built, did we actually check to see that it met those requirements? And who checked it? Nobody, because you just wrote this application and when you went to bed and told the AI what you wanted, and next morning you had something that worked, and hey, that's pretty cool. And so, what libraries is the application using? Is the coding app using? And you would hope that it's only going to use known good libraries, and it's not going to pull older vulnerable libraries in there. But you have to remember hallucinations. It has a task to do the thing, whatever you asked it to do. And it has the freedom to do that thing in the way that it deems the best way to do it. So there are possibilities it can pull exploited libraries, old libraries into the code, and you would never even know it. There's also possibilities, which we see all the time. You could test a whole bunch of code. It can have in different applications, it can all look clean, not find any glaring vulnerabilities. But by the time you piece them together in the way that they interact and the way that they pull the data, you end up introducing vulnerabilities into the middle of the process because of just the way the thing is put together and the way it operates. So all this is happening with folks who have never written code before or written very little and don't have a comprehension on what are security requirements, why should I have security requirements, never even heard of the OWASP top 10 or any of these other things that are quite common that developers are looking at and saying, oh, we know not to do these things because this could create a vulnerability. So, and the other part of it is now you have a whole bunch of these folks who can do it in your walls potentially, and they're producing God knows how many lines of code each day, each week, and putting them in your environment. So it's a great win in some ways, but if unchecked, I mean, so recommendation is you need to ask if people are vibe coding. You've got plenty of smart IT professionals who are having a whole lot of fun with these tools, and it is very, very cool. But hey, staff, is anybody using vibe coding? Where are you using it? When is it interfacing with production or proprietary data? So you've got to start to get visibility on it, and that's one of the things that we're working on right now. It's very hard to prevent a lot of things from happening at this moment in time because it's all coming so fast. But
Yeah.
where can we at least get some visibility around how many folks are vibe coding? How much unsanctioned AI usage are we seeing just at the choke points? Um, can we get agents on the endpoints so that we can actually watch for some behavior that that would tell us like, hey, that we've got a potential problem here. So how do we get the visibility so that we can start to make decisions and then start to lock these things down?
Yeah, and you when you mentioned that, well, who's checking it? You go to sleep, you prompt the AI, you go to sleep, wake up, you have your thing. I was actually having that conversation with a friend who's not in the cybersecurity industry,
Mhm.
so a little different perspective. And I asked them, like, who's checking this stuff? You have no coding experience. Like, oh, the AI is checking it. And I was like, that seems like a problematic. You have it's like a writer or an editor editing their own work. There's always going to be things you overlook. To me, it feels like a very parallel idea. It just seems problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is where something like Mythos and now Fable is very beneficial. We just wrote a bunch of code. Review that code for vulnerabilities. Well, yes, it can do that, but you have to tell it to do that. And you can't just say, go write me a secure application and not give it any security requirements and not test it and just assume it's secure. The testing is what's required on the other end. And we know AI makes mistakes. It hallucinates.
Right.
Could it could run into a roadblock when trying to develop a certain application and say that's not working. I need to pull something different in, and it will pull something different in because it will try to solve its own problem. So it is not as rigorous and structured as what a full SDLC process would look like. So
Right.
it's yeah, it is
It's interesting.
yeah, it's a
It's an
lot of fun.
interesting
A lot
world
of
we're
fun.
living in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look a little bit like from a organization standpoint. If a company is watching this, feels the problems that we're talking about, where do they actually start? I feel like we could break down these pillars that we talk about often here at Secure IT 360: the governance, validation, monitoring. Um, where do they start?
Um, well, first of all, you've got to tell the people like what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I mean, the cat's already out of the bag. Unless you're going to turn it all off and block it all on everybody's machine, which you're not because it's already happening. You've got to at least give them some guidance, because here's what's allowed, here's what's not allowed. We've got to do the training, and we've got to set up a framework with which to make decisions on. And it's like this for any security. It's like these behaviors are allowed, these behaviors are known risky, and these behaviors are not allowed. So we're going to write policy that says this is what we will do and this is what we will not do. And then we're going to put technical controls in to prevent the things that we can and monitor for the other things that we're concerned about. So I would say I have not seen a robust, complete AI governance policy yet in place in any organizations, because everybody's catching up. Most
Right.
times, and I'd say they probably exist, I just haven't seen one yet. But most times they're, how can we make a few statements to bring awareness to this, put some type of controls on it, and then will try to make it better as time goes on. So right now, folks are getting to that governance part. However, what most of our clients are saying is like, that's great. Don't give me some governance assessment and tell me what I need to write from policy. What are people doing right now? How would I know if somebody's doing something bad? So even though we need the governance framework to set up the structure that we're going to use for controls and monitoring, most folks are like, well, again, cat's out of the bag. This thing is already running wild. How can I at least get a handle on what's going on in my network right now so that I can start to know if there's any risk? So, but if a perfect world, we could say, let's establish our framework. We can use ISO, CIS. There's others that have already come out with some governance frameworks. ISO 42001 is fairly detailed enough. But then, okay, we said that we're going to require these things. We put certain controls in place. Now let's validate those controls are working. So that would be the second piece. First piece is governance. Second piece, let's validate, which take AI away from it. Have we done this before? Same thing. We have our ISO 27001. We say we're going to follow this program. We do testing and validation on it, either by audit or penetration testing, other forms of sampling, and then we agree like, yes, everything's working. Same thing with the AI governance. You have your control set, you set it up, you audit, validate, pen test, do other technical testing to make sure that it's working, and then you put the monitoring in place that looks for anomalies on the back end. That's the third part of the third pillar. So governance, validation, and then monitor. Right now, unfortunately, things are a little bit out of order because of the speed with which this is happening. So we've got all kinds of things happening. What the heck's happening? How can we how can we know if we have any more risk? Somebody please tell me that. And then can I at least reduce that risk, and then we can get back to kind of doing this the right way.
So what I'm hearing you say, does it kind of, we have to get that visibility first. That's the a good first step is understanding what's in your environment. Then you can put policies in place and govern against those policies. You validate and monitor.
Yeah, I fully believe that it's out of order right now. I mean, you can't stop and go put governance in and wait on people to turn stuff off. You've got to
Right.
start seeing, you need to see the behavior. And it's just like this for any type of security exercise is what's actually happening right now in my network. I mean, am I already breached? Maybe, maybe not. Um, so if I can't see, what I have, if I don't have a good inventory of all the different AI tools that are being used, who's using agents, where they are, how they're provisioned, how can I see what is actually in my network, and on my, what my users are using, then how do I know what my new risk profile is with all of this AI stuff? So yeah, you've got to get some type of visibility assessment, be a combination of technical tools and some good old fashioned auditing with users. What are you using? A lot of it can be accomplished technically, but what have folks installed on their computers? What browser plugins have they added in? and then watching the traffic to see what sites they're going to, looking at your third party vendors and seeing how they've got AI built in. But again, it's an audit process to get that visibility and get an idea of what's going on, and then you can start ratcheting down from there.
Okay. For to close us out, for organizations that want to see where they actually stand today, this visibility we've been talking about, all these risks we've been talking about related to AI, what has Secure IT 360 put together that you can share with people today?
We have put together an AI visibility assessment, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a combination between good old fashioned auditing, interviewing, and technical tools, to where we could say it looks to us like this, you've got this much unsanctioned AI usage. These are the heavy tools they're using. This is what the users are using them for. We can go deeper. We could look at third parties as well. Obviously, that can take a lot more time. But then for our clients that are already our SOC clients, we've been building in some visibility capability into our SOC, so that we can start to look for rogue LLM usage, if you will, any agentic behavior that we can detect that appears to be anomalous. And then we've also got a separate product called Chain Guard that we've built in, that is going to be built into the SOC, to where if people are vibe coding, we can actually watch that vibe code. Now, it does require structure. It's not like it's just going to randomly tell you anybody that's out there vibe coding and like, hey, this person's vibe coding and their stuff looks safe. Again, we've got to set up a structure where vibe coding is allowed. And if certain users do have permission to vibe code, then we know that they are, so that we can watch their code as they commit it, either to a repository or if they're doing it locally on their machine. And so we can validate that that code doesn't appear to have any vulnerabilities, and we know what it's for before it goes into production. So we've got a couple of those tools that are brand new and in process. That right now they're in proof of concept, and then we are consistently looking at all the various different ways between DLP, exfiltration, um, any of the other privacy risk. Um, if we can't block it, how can we detect it? And then how do we keep catching up with the different products that keep coming out, so that we can give
Yeah.
our clients the visibility to make good decisions?
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff going on.
Hmm.
It's an exciting time to be in this
Hmm.
space at
Yeah.
Security 360. So,
So another thing our SOC is doing is we've developed a continuous pen testing app, because since the 0 day clock is down to 2 hours, it's more important than ever to find the vulnerability, validate their, and come back very quickly and validate that if we think we've mitigated it, that it is indeed mitigated. And so that's where the continuous pen testing, which many folks are not doing yet, but if we test, and depending upon the cycle of the testing, depending upon your attack surface that we've got to test, could be as quickly as a few hours. It might be a day, but on a regular cadence, you're going to know, I had these vulnerabilities, I don't have these. I had these, I don't have these. And because the exploits are coming out so fast, we feel that just vulnerability scans at the speed that they run, it's just not enough. We've got to actually be
right.
probing the environment to see if we can attack it. So those are some other things that we've been developing.
Yeah, I kind of been thinking about PenGuard recently as like our autonomous solution for validation, for ensuring that your
Mhm.
controls are working, and it is I mean, you have the annual pen tests, which are different than this autonomous continuous testing that PenGuard provides. So
Right.
just to throw that out there, I think there's again another
Yeah.
exciting area that we're really doing some cool stuff. So
Yep.
good to bring up. I appreciate you bringing
Yeah.
that up. I'm sure we'll talk about more about that stuff again soon. For now, let's say goodbye. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate
All
it,
right.
and talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Michelle.